What if demons are real? Not horned monsters, but something ancient and unseen that humanity has tried to describe for thousands of years. Nearly every culture tells stories of dark entities or spirits that influence the mind, which raise the question, are these supernatural forces, or simply our way of explaining fear and mental illness? Science often points to psychology, trauma, or neurological disorders to explain possession. And in many cases, those fit. Yet some stories refuse to fade because they include witnesses, official reports, and details that seem hard to dismiss. The Ammons family case in Gary, Indiana, is one of those stories. In 2011, the family claimed their home was plagued by disturbing events and alleged demonic possession. Police officers, social workers, and medical staff documented strange behaviors that left skeptics unsettled. Believers saw it as proof of the supernatural, while critics argued it was stress, suggestion, and psychological contagion at work. In the end, demons may be external beings, internal struggles, or symbols of the darker parts of the human psyche. What's certain is that the fear and the fascination is very real. Cases like the Ammons story live in the gray area between science and belief, reminding us that even in the modern world, some mysteries still make us wonder what might be lurking just beyond explanation.
What do you see when you're in the dark and the demons come?
1, 2, married stories for you.
Welcome to Buried Stories. I'm Jeff Mercurio, Wendell Brown. Wendell, good evening.
Good evening.
And Steve Mercurio. Steve, good evening.
What's up, man?
All right, this raises the question, number one, what are your guys' position on possession? We'll go with Steve first.
I absolutely think it's possible, for sure. I think that when it comes down to it, there are signs that I think would kind of, I'd say, dictate between possession and mental illness. Ones that kind of stand out to me are language speaking, that there's really no way that that individual has been maybe exposed to certain types, Latin, Portuguese, other languages that kind of stand out, that there'd be no way for an individual to really know that unless they knew that. So, I mean, I definitely think that it's possible, and I definitely think that, but I do think that it's best for medical practitioners and whatnot to get involved first, for there to be certain medical testing first, and then kind of take that next step to maybe more religious or faith, after. So
I got you. Yeah. How about you, Wendell? What's your position on possession?
Yeah, I'm on the same lines.
Same line.
It's a really thin line between mental illness and then true possession. I do believe that true possession happens. I think it's very rare, but yes, I think in rare instances it's true, and when it happens, doctors aren't going to help you after that. You need some other power involved. But I agree with Steve in our societal makeup and the way things are. It's hard. You can't just believe somebody immediately saying they're possessed. You got to have some testing. And I think the challenge is don't let the doctors take over, um, and just diagnose it as some other personality when, like Steve said, the kid's quoting Latin and he's 7 years old. Come on,
Right, right,
stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely believe it's possible. I think it's very, very rare. Um, and So there you go. I think it's scary. It's very scary that it can happen. Well, that we all believe in it because we're always, we were like Steve was saying on the gin. Let's just tread lightly here. And you and I've had conversations too. There's certain things you really don't want to invite in your life,
right.
and so on the same lines as that.
I copy. Yeah, I'm basically the same thing as you guys on that front. I mean, there's been documented cases throughout time. So this Ammons case is one that is so well documented. It was fascinating to look into this thing. So 2011, the Ammons family lived in. They found a small house in Gary, Indiana. Other houses on this street, they were all the same shape and size. This was a house. It had a screened front porch and 3 bedrooms, basement. And what got me is the Latoya Ammons was the mother. Rosa, her name was Rosa, was the grandmother. They had a daughter and 2 sons, 7 and 9. And Latoya's brother lived in the same area. So when this family, because according to Father Maginot, she was being stalked by an ex-boyfriend. So she thought if she moved and didn't say where she moved to, she'd get away from that situation. So the brother talked to the landlord from where he got his house, or where he was staying. And the landlord said, "Yeah, I got this house, and it was cheaper than renting an apartment." So to me, that's like, well, let me check this out first.
Red flag number one.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of another story. When we'll talk about that later. But so they got into this house, and there was many disturbances. But by the time the officials got brought in, um, they had moved out of this house, and they were staying with the brother. And the officials were brought in, some police, and the child protective services were brought in, and so it's a crazy story. And I mean, it's got one heck of an ending too. Steve, what do you got on this from like Zach Bagan's perspective?
Well, it's mine. I mean, we're kind of watching his documentary. I believe it's called like The Demon House of Indiana or something to that effect. But, he had found out about this house, and according to what he said in the documentary, he purchased it sight unseen. He had heard the stories. Here's the weird thing. When he first bought it, there were some squatters living in it, and he had to talk them out of it. And, you know, he went in, he obviously tried to reach the family. There was some discrepancy in him even speaking to the family. They didn't want to even they didn't actually even want to invite him into the apartment because he had stepped foot in the house. They were so worried about him or their crew bringing in whatever could have followed them into there. So they wouldn't even let them in the house, nor would they talk to them. He talked to quite a few other people. He was able to reach I believe the police captain, and the police captain came in, talked about what he had witnessed. They found they talked to I think it was the priest or a priest who was very familiar with the situation. They also talked to the child protective services representative who was there. And, she had stated part of the reason she had left that area, she'd moved like 150 miles away. And she said that was one of the reasons, was what she had witnessed as a result of that house.
Right.
And so, the other things though, that stand out, there was a relative of Latoya. So the mother, my understanding, her mother who resided was very familiar with what was happening in the house.
Yeah, yeah.
But there was a stepmother or something who said that none of this was real, and also supposedly the squatters were trying to say they hadn't experienced anything. But he said as he was doing this documentary, a woman and her family had stopped, and they're in the documentary, and they said they had lived in the house for a while. And the woman said that her brother had lived in the basement, and her brother ended up passing away, and not because the house itself, but rather a violent episode that he had later on. And she had wondered if this was connected somehow, that almost anybody who steps into the home has some sort of bad luck, has something bad happen to them. So, that's a lot of what the documentary goes over is people who have experienced something in this house or saw something in this house, and maybe what would have happened to them after.
Let's go back to 2011. So 2011, the first strange events, it was Latoya Ammons and her mother, Rosa Campbell. They lived in the house. They had 3 children, 7, 9, and 12. And it was a rental home on Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. The family begins hearing footsteps. It always begins with footsteps coming up from the basement stairs and doors creaking open by themselves at night. Then Rosa Campbell claims she sometimes saw a shadow figure and heavy footsteps. No one was visibly present, so we got the shadow figure, we got heavy footsteps. And what Father Maginot was saying too is, like, the boys were going to school and Rosa would be home, and they would come home from school and they would go out to the backyard, and on 2 occasions they saw this woman dressed in white, and she was like an older lady, but the woman would look up and she had blazing red eyes, so the kids would run in and, tell the grandmother, hey, there's an old lady outside, but she has red eyes, and Grandma Rosa would come and look and nobody was there. That happened twice on 2 occasions, and that's before, like, the major possession disturbances happen. So according to events, the home became increasingly disturbing, involving physical disturbance and unusual behaviors by the children, involving levitation, strange voices, and movement that defies typical explanations. So the levitation part, I was interested to find out, was Latoya's daughter, I think, had a cousin sleeping over because there was a family gathering at the house. And it was getting late, and so the daughter and the cousin were laying in her room, and they heard the cousin start screaming. And so the mom, ran to the room, opened the door, and turned on the light. And as soon as the light was turned on, she saw her drop to the bed. So the cousin said, yeah, she was levitating for a little while there. So I found that to be pretty disturbing, if you ask me. And strange voices people were hearing there, and movement that defies typical explanations. So, I mean, we got the levitation. That brings us sort of like the typical, if you think of the levitation thing, you think of The Exorcist, of course. But the 2 sons, 7 and 9, were horrible with each other. They were starting to cuss a lot and say, I'll kill you. And they had to have separate bedrooms. And one time the 7-year-old was trying to strangle the 9-year-old. So that was separated. Then there was an episode where, like, the younger or the older son was in the bathroom and got thrown out of the bathroom against the wall. The younger son, he tried to, like, kill his brother and stuff, and they had to be separated, and you'd hear them yelling from the rooms, I'll kill you, and stuff. And they started seeing some of this oil, on the some of the curtains, not curtains, but the blinds and stuff. And I found out what that was is she was a Presbyterian, and they didn't want nothing to do with this, so they gave her some information on like what to do to try to cleanse the house. Was take some baby oil, put the sign of the cross on these on any areas that you find disturbing. Well, Latoya did big crosses on pretty much all the blinds in every house, and so that dried up. But like when Father Maginot was brought in, he actually witnessed in Latoya's room that there was like oil dripping from the blinds. Now, this was months after the baby oil was put on, so that was kind of odd. So you got the police that they were called in, and when Latoya got so frustrated, they moved to her brother's place. The brother took him in, and at that point, the kids were out of school, and they never returned. So, Child Protective Services were brought in, and they were actually at the hospital, uh, looking over the kids. The daughter was okay. She really didn't get too much disturbances, but the 7 and 9-year-old, they had to take the 7-year-old and lock him away in one of the child, like psychiatric wards. So he was being overseen, but he was in a child psychiatric ward. And so you had this doctor, you had a psychiatrist, a psychiatrist, a nurse, and a child protective service in the room with the 9-year-old and Latoya, or not Latoya, Rosa. So Rosa's sitting there, and the boy's sitting there, and they're asking him questions, and he just gets up, eyes roll behind his head, he starts to growl, and Rosa sees what's going on, and she's familiar with all these happenings, that she grabs his hands and says, you know, you're not you, you're not you, you're not you, and she keeps repeating that. But the child starts walking towards the wall, gets to the wall, and then it starts walking backwards up the wall and does a flip and lands in front of the grandma, never breaking the arms, from the grandmother and the Child Protective Service. And all three of the people that were in the room ran out and called for security. So that's when the investigation with the cops and the priest was actually brought into the house. So up until that point, I mean, this would freak me out. How about you guys?
Yeah, I think when you see stuff like that, you can kind of do away with your suspicion, whether it's real or not. Walking up walls, uh, I found that, well, that's like we were talking about. If you were to see, say, a flying saucer, you saw it. It doesn't matter what everybody else says. If you were to see that, I would think that'd be pretty convincing.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it sounds like in this house also, didn't they invite some like psychics in?
Yeah, there was some
And they said
clairvoyance brought
is
in.
this the one with 200? This is the one with 200 or something? That you're not being, look, there's not one demon here. There's like 200 that we sense or something like that. So, yeah. But
That was from the clairvoyance perspective. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was going to say, going back, when they touched in on the documentary about the incident with the oil, what was interesting was that I believe it was some of the police officers were talking about how they went into the room, they saw the oil coming down the blinds. They didn't see a source for it, okay? They said that they had wiped it up, cleaned it up. They were trying to look for a source for it. They had left the room, and the detective put a Q-tip when he had closed the door, he had put a Q-tip in the door surface so that if anybody were to open up the door, you'd be able to see somebody went in the room. And they walked away for about 45 minutes. And when they had come back, the Q-tip was still sitting in the door. When they went back in the room, the oil was there present again. So then they went outside to look. Did somebody attempt to enter through the window? They could find no signs of entry. And it intrigued them what the source, like, why was there still more oil coming?
Right. Right.
Another fascinating thing they touched on in the documentary was underneath the stairs, it's soil. Okay. And they found multiple items that the police were digging out. What I had listed was they had found a comb, women's panties, children's socks, like a red tin of some sort, and a nail, but they didn't know where it came from.
A fingernail, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And they had no idea where it came from, what the source might have been. So, that was very interesting as well. And they described, I'd heard about the 200, but one of the some of the witnesses, at least according to Zach, said that what was ultimately described was a very tall goat-like appearance of an entity. Very tall, extremely tall. 12, 15 feet type of tall. And they said, and Zach said a week before he purchased the home, he had dreamed about this spirit, this demon coming down steps, and breathing out black smoke into him. And he said he had no idea what that meant, what it was. This was before he even knew about the house. And then he had purchased the home sight unseen. And people were starting to describe this entity to him, this goat-like creature. And, another interesting thing is he had a cameraman start freaking out when they were at a hotel room. They each had a different hotel room. And I believe security was called because one of the cameramen had freaked out to the point that Zach had to let him go from the project. And he described seeing this goat man. And so, mostly what they talk about was that you weren't safe whether you were in the house, but you sure weren't safe when you left as well, because this thing would follow you. The police captain talked about an incident that he had when he had visited the home. He had left, went down the street, was pulled in near a gas station, and his radio AM FM just turned on to straight fuzz noise.
Yeah.
And then he had heard something scream out of the radio, something like, "Who are you?" or "What are you?"
Right.
Something like that. So, I mean, and then the police captain talked about how he had a bunch of weird incidents happen to him after this, like to his health. He also had a shooting while he was doing. Now, granted, could it be related? I don't know. I have no idea. So
It opens up all kind of interesting questions because I'm from Indiana.
Yeah.
And for my whole entire life in Indiana, Gary was the murder capital of the United States.
Yeah. That's what I thought when I started looking into it. Is, man, that's a rough area.
Yeah, so there's all kind of different strings you could connect as far as why is Gary so bad, why is the violence so bad there, and then you have this and you have this house, and it's, to me, there's not a lot of questions about it. There was stuff going on, and there's something going on, and I think, Jeff, you might talk about it a little bit with the priest. I think the priest was pretty upset with how they ended up what they did with the house, and they didn't cleanse it.
Right.
Because there's obviously something bigger going on than just in that house, in that town.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, from when the investigation started going into the house, they had the Father Maginot was called in, and he was actually there, and he sat with LaToya in the living room, and he was sitting there, he's talking to Latoya, and he brought up the boyfriend. And as soon as he brought up the boyfriend who was doing the stalking, he saw down the hallway, the bathroom light starts flickering. And he goes, hold on. And he starts walking down the hallway to go into the bathroom to see what's going on. Maybe it's electric or something. As soon as he walks into the bathroom, it stops. Light just stays on. So he's like, okay. So he goes back, sits down, and he goes, all right, let's get back talking to the boyfriend. As soon as he said that, the lights start flickering again. So he gets up, he goes back in there, and it stays on. So he sits back down, and he's like, all right, let's talk about the boyfriend. She starts saying she has a headache, a severe headache, and that she's getting cold. And then he goes, well, let's get back to the boyfriend. And now she throws off the blanket because she says, I'm burning up. So he was starting to get suspicious that the boyfriend that was doing the stalking had something to do with this as well. And then when they finally were able to talk about it, Latoya was like, yeah, I got a call. And it was a woman that said, I put a curse on you. That's my man. He's married, I'm his wife. And Latoya was like, whoa, he's yours. I don't want anything to do with him. He's yours. So he started thinking, all right, this boyfriend might have did something. And there was a weird gift. He stopped over one day and gave, he had 2 $5 bills, and he said, this is for my sons, or this is for your sons. And Latoya thought that was weird. So, I mean, that was like sort of an in into the house, I suppose. But he would come back another time, and he'd see these big footsteps in the ground, and they were just surrounding Latoya, these footsteps, and he's looking, and they had some water too. It's like somebody walked in a puddle and then walked around. He's looking, and, he's pushing his foot to kind of scrub them out. And he's like, well, they're not mine. I didn't get up. I didn't step in a puddle, but they would always be around her. And they also saw it in the kitchen, coming up from the basement. So when they brought the cops in, because the cops were brought in, they asked Father Maginot to assist them because he had been doing some investigation into what was going on in the house as well. So you're right, Steve. They go downstairs, and Rosa's there with them. And they go downstairs, and what they see is like a pentagram around the basement floor on the concrete, and some candles and salt put down. And there was a statue that was sitting up almost next to the stairs, right by where the dirt, and that statue had a candle on it and also had a nativity scene there too. So police was asking about it, and he said, Rosa said, yeah, the Presbyterian church, said we should put salt and do the sage. Well, the clairvoyants did the sage, but put salt and put candles up, and put a church artifact in certain areas. So they thought, okay, that's fine. But then they're looking around, and they're taking pictures too. And the police captain took a picture towards the stairs, and he's looking at it, because, well, first of all, their equipment started failing. All right. Like, they had another guy, the sheriff, he brought a good camera in, and as soon as they got to the basement, the batteries were dead, which we've heard that they drain batteries as well. So they put that away, and they could use their phone. So they were doing recording on the phone. And so, like, some squeaking came over like their intercom, and it was going through channels and just going back and forth through channels. So he turned it off. So the captain takes a picture of the stairs, facing the stairs where that dirt pile is behind. And they're looking at the pictures, and off to the left was this white orb. It looked like a head looking through the stairs, and on the right was a greenish orb doing the same thing, looking through. And they were stunned. They were like, "Oh, what's this?" But so they go around to the back of the stairs, and that's when they start digging. They got about 2 feet below, and like you said, Steve, they brought up a nail. They kept digging. They brought up a pair of girls' panties. They kept digging. They brought up a sock. And according to Father Maginot, they kept digging more, and they brought up a shoehorn, an old shoehorn that was bent in half. So there was many artifacts under the stairs, and the police were asking. The captain asked, what should I do with these? Because nobody wanted to deal with them, because he didn't know if somebody was buried there or not. So he put them back in and buried it, just left it there. And so Father Maginot, according to him, he took a crucifix when he was talking to LaToya, put it on her forehead, and she started convulsing. And he took it away, and he did it again. She was convulsing again. So he was saying that this thing wasn't just possessing one person, it was bouncing around. And going back to the photos from the police, as the police were leaving, the sheriff turned around, took a picture of the house. And if you look at Wendell's screen there, right behind him is circled red, and looks like a figure right there looking out the window. And there was nobody in the house at the time. So there was some pretty good photos as far as like investigative photos. But Father Maginot thought that he got the right to do an exorcism, and he's like, it has to be LaToya, that she's the culprit for all this stuff that is possessing her and jumping from her out to other people. So he did like an easy exorcism, and he put the cross on, and she didn't like convulse or anything. So he's like, all right, all done. But a little bit later, they go back in to do more investigation of the house, the police, child protective services, and the father. And they go around and they're noticing the oil. Now, since the sign of the cross was put up on these blinds, the oil, you got the beam, the horizontal beam, and you got the cross beam there. So the oil was starting to leak real bad on these cross beams. And even the sheriffs were like, what is this? And they took samples too. But as they went back downstairs, they saw oil on the stairs too. And they were in the shape of the cross all the way down the stairs too. So they go back and they're just looking and doing like a final investigation before they close the books on this. So they leave, and Father Maginot was like, I don't think that possession or that exorcist was successful. So he was going to do it again, but she had already moved to her brother's house. So that's when Zach Bagans took over, and he called Father Maginot there, and that's why Zach Bagans was, in that dirt pile pulling these things out, and the priest, like you said, Wendell, was getting angry because he wanted that stuff out. It was like that was keeping something in the house, so he wanted the stuff out. But if I'm not wrong, Steve, Bagans left it in there, did he not?
I believe he did. Yeah.
Right, and due to the demolishing of the house, the priest was not happy with leaving those articles behind, because that was part of the cleansing process. So I found that to be probably one of the most well-documented cases in our time of possession and demon haunting myself.
What did the ghost hunter decide when he bought the house and, of course, did all his filming and everything, investigation inside? What was his conclusion?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Wendell, because I was going to talk about that. First of all, let's talk about Zach for just a moment, okay? I know a lot of people question his credibility and everything, and I'm not here to stand up for him or anything like that. What I will say about Zach is, however you feel about him, he has shed a lot of light and brought a lot of sunlight to the paranormal where many other people have not. So, I mean, he is literally responsible or partially responsible for all the people out there who do ghost hunting and everything else. I mean, this guy opened up that door. So, however you feel, but let me tell you another thing. I mean, Zach owns a haunted museum. I don't know if you guys are aware of this in Vegas, and
Yeah.
he has some of the most questionable items in the world in this museum. I mean, you have ashes of serial killers there. You have all sorts. I mean, his latest episode was him purchasing or talking about his purchase of the serial killers, Samuel Little, the most
Mhm.
notorious, like the he bought his ashes and he placed them in his museum. So, and this is why I bring this up, because if Zach thought for 2 minutes that he could make money off this home, other than his documentary, I believe that house would not have gone down. I think
Right.
it speaks very high volume that Zach Baggins bought this home and had it demolished because it was too much for people. He truly believed it was demonic, Wendell. He actually, in the end of his documentary, he spent, I believe, 24 hours in this home. He had it sealed in. All the windows had wood bolted in on the outside. He even did it to the main doors, so he couldn't get out. If he needed, and he had a meeting with the police captain before he did this. Police captain came out and goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" He goes, "I'm about to seal myself in this house for 24 hours." And the captain goes, okay, listen, if you better get the fire department's number ready, because if you're gonna need them to be able to get you out of this house. And Zach talked about how he experienced, and I think he caught something on camera. He had a very odd and what he thought was a demonic experience with something in the home around like 4:30 in the morning. He saw this weird black shadow and he heard this loud noise. And then he said after that, his eyes started hurting really bad. And he talked about how he has a permanent, I don't know if it's an eye, like loss of sight or something. He had
It was
something
double
happen.
vision.
Yeah, he had something happen, and they talked about performing some sort of surgery, but the doctors were worried that if this surgery goes wrong, he's going to be blind forever. So I like I said, however you feel about Zach, I just want to go on record here and just say for a moment, if Zach believes a location is too demonic and too dangerous, I think that speaks loudly, because I mean, again, think about what this man has in his place in Vegas, right? I mean, this is a guy who
Right.
notoriously goes out and gets some of the most haunted items, including items that people swear are demonic, and puts them in that museum. But this house was too much for him that he had it knocked down. So I
Yeah,
think
Yeah,
that
you're
speaks
right.
loudly.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's interesting because, like I said, we all three of us have been, we love talking about everything, but there's a line that we won't cross, and the demonic is probably the biggest line. Because if you truly believe that we're saying demons, that we're talking demons, it's the kind of thing that can follow you, can stay with you, can influence you, and I really, I'm starting to lean that's why Gary is the way it has, why it has a reputation it has. A lot of
That
people
could
there,
be.
though. I mean, you can throw it in the old big city,
Right.
right on the outskirts of Chicago. A lot of people. The more people you get together at one time, the more it's probable something's going to happen. Um, but That says a lot. I'm glad you said that about what he thought, because yeah, it surprised me they demolished the house, and like you said, didn't make a ghost hunter attraction out of it, and because I don't think we're talking about ghost, and I think he probably knew we weren't talking about ghost, and demons are a whole different thing, and if you truly believe uh, that they're there, then yes, yeah, you have. It is dangerous. It's a dangerous thing.
Well, like you said, Steve, he suffered double vision. He now wears prism glasses so he could see correctly. He suffered psychological trauma too, that he still has nightmares about this house. And one of his cameramen have the same problem, hearing voices. Zach said he still hears voices and sees shadow figures. So
I
you're
wonder
right.
how he feels about that, because that's his line of work.
Right.
I wonder how he feels about that. It's like, whoa, like we were talking about finding treasure, when you find the big treasure, now
Yeah,
what am I going to do with it, kind of thing.
right.
Uh,
Yeah.
you, I wonder how he feels about that, whether it was a good move, um, or,
Does he
I wish
wish
I
he
would have
never
just
did
walked
it?
by that one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's what I'd like to know further about this story. I just would love to know, and I'm sure there's some answers out there. Maybe we could revisit this, but this story kind of surrounds this one family. And, there have been multiple people. I mean, the one lady in the documentary, the one that comes in, talks about her family and whatnot. Um, you know, she said she had lived in there back in the 90s and she was experiencing some stuff. So I would like to know more about the history of, who built the home. Maybe how many families up until, like, is there any research that would show that this didn't just start with the Ammons, that this thing started, years before. I'd like to know, and theoretically, I'm asking you guys, I believe, and I could be wrong. I believe this is still an empty lot. If I'm correct, they knocked the house down, and I believe it's an empty lot. In your mind, do you guys believe if you built something there, that it's just gonna return right back to what it was?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was never cleansed,
Yeah,
you'd
I don't
have
think it had
problems.
anything to do with the house. It's the
Right.
Okay.
location. Yeah,
Yeah, I'd
it's
be
New York.
interested as well, finding out when the concrete was broken up, who was living in it then and where those articles came from, because clearly it's a ritualistic thing, so it was inviting something or, paying homage to something unnatural, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And that ghost hunter thing, his reaction to it, I think, says a lot, because that's his line of work. It's what we were talking about. Ghost hunters bailing when they find the ghost. It doesn't
Yeah,
make sense to
yeah.
you, but like I said, I don't think he was dealing with ghosts, and I think he knew it.
I
Right.
absolutely I would absolutely suggest, if you haven't seen it, it is definitely eye-opening, and
Well,
I've
Jeff,
watched
where's
a
the
lot of.
Catholic Church?
Yeah.
Where's the Catholic Church land on it now? And the
Well,
priest, I mean,
the priest came out, Father Maginot, he was on uh, one of the podcasts. He told everything about the house. I mean, he absolutely believes that, what happened happened, and he gave the reasons why they were happening. But he concluded without saying what he believes with the property right now. So that's where he left it. So I didn't hear anything more about where they stand on it.
seems like an unfinished story to me.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as somebody builds, we'll have another story. So
Well, there was this interesting moment during the documentary where, um, they had believed somebody was attempting to break, and this was after Zach had already purchased it. They were in town, and then they were traveling around, and they had gotten word somebody was attempting to break in. And so they called the police. and then they met the police there, and the police knew exactly what house it was. They wouldn't step near the porch at all. They said, "Hey, we're nervous being here, standing in this yard. Like, we believe there's something wrong with this house." And the one officer's like, "Look, I believe in this stuff, and I am not feeling comfortable in any way, shape, or form just even standing here." They wouldn't go in the home. They wouldn't go near the home. So, I mean, I think when you have police officers that know, I would just seriously, I would just like to know if how about this? Here's another good question. How about the homes? Because these homes are relatively close to each other, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Are any of the neighbors, whether it be on one side, another side, back, front, whatever, are any of the neighbors experiencing, have they had anything happen, or was it kind of just to that small plot of land right there?
Well, as far as our investigation into this goes, it was just that location. Um, I'm sure the police would have said something when they were brought in saying, yeah, we've gotten calls for this house, all the ones around, but it seems to be that central location. And that's another thing. I mean, if you look, and there's a lot of people that just brush away this demon stuff, and they do the tarot cards and they do the Ouija boards and even like hexes. And you see nowadays there's like a surge back into Wiccan or Wicca, where there's tarot cards, there's TikTok videos of how to be a witch, doing witchcraft correctly, spells and stuff like that. And I think they're playing with fire myself.
Well, it surprises me all the people like us that search for things. Um, that being a known hotspot, uh, you got the you got the coordinates on it. There it is. I'm surprised more people don't try to, people that deal with the demons and stuff, in that
Right.
that kind of thing. I don't want anything to do with it, but people who I'm surprised that there's just not a rush of scientific investigators going there to do more. Maybe there is, and I just don't know about it. But it it obviously has been. It's somewhat legitimate when your local police officers say, "Yeah, we know all about this," and 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 it's kind of crazy because that lady had to get interviewed by Child Protective Services and stuff because they thought she was abusing her kids and
Right.
because of things that were going on there, and then they finally, said, "No, she's fine." Um, e Even if the ghost hunters or demon hunters didn't do it, it surprises me that the authorities don't do it. Um, that there's something going on, and like I said, it was always really odd to me in Indiana that this small town, Gary, Indiana, was the murder capital of the world,
I know, yeah.
or the United States, and, it's just very violent at what it was back in the day. Maybe a lot better now, I don't know, I haven't been back there, but, um, it just, but this would explain some of it, I think, if there's a demonic presence in the area.
A lot of the times I think the scientific world, they don't believe in it, so they're not gonna waste their time on something that they don't believe in, but m I don't know how many ghost hunters go there, try to get, like, EVPs, from that area or,
Even
you know
debunkers, I'm
Yeah.
surprised debunkers don't. We're gonna pitch a tent right here where the house was, and show you there's nothing
Yeah.
going on,
Well,
you
Hey,
know?
Steve, you got your next,
There's
no,
your next
field
listen,
trip.
trip.
There's your next trip.
going back to what you're talking about, Jeff, I think in my mind, everything I understand about like ghost hunting or anything paranormal, any opening of doors or however we want to go about it, Ouija boards or magic or it's my understanding it's all about intention. At the end of the day, it's all about what are your intentions? What is it that you are trying to accomplish? And that if your intention is pure and it's good, meaning positive, of a white light, that things can be okay. But it's also, if your intention is to bring bad things, right? I mean, if we're trying to figure out what happened to create these things, I think we talked about it earlier, where you guys had talked about maybe something ritualistic to bring in, essentially, so somebody had an intention to bring something evil or bad, or if we're going back to the thought that this was a curse, right? That somebody had brought something against her directly. Again, that was an intention, that was something brought in, potentially evil, for a reason. And stuff like that, I don't get into. That's, like, I'll tell you what, I love to go visit what I would think is haunted locations, but there's definitely some questionable ones. And this Indiana home, I that's one place I would not have stepped into at
Jeff,
all.
Right.
Jeff, you've danced with the devil at times. What's your
I wouldn't
conclusion?
I would I wouldn't say I dance with anything like
Well,
that. I
you're
wouldn't be
you're
here.
more versed in this subject matter than Steve and I. So, what's your conclusion?
Well, I think something ritualistically happened there prior to the Ammons family being there, and we don't know exactly what happened or who did this or what their intention was or who they were calling, because you know all these demons have names too, and the one way to exorcise them is to make the demon, you know, show himself, give his name as well. So all these demons have names. So it was playing with fire. It was, to me, it was ritualistically
That's my guess
brought in
too.
there.
Somebody did a
Yeah,
ritual there that they don't know about. Somebody
right,
performed a ritual there before those people lived there.
right. And the one thing that I do understand is if you don't cleanse the house correctly, sometimes more can come through that doorway as well.
Like a
Yeah,
portal.
yeah,
Yeah,
Well,
I think somebody opened something up at some point in time.
yeah.
Where
And look, in my estimation, going back to what you guys were talking about, Jeff, could it have been the ex-boyfriend or the stalker guy or whatever? Listen, maybe contributed to it, but kind of the thing that you said that stuck out was you're talking about that the rent was lesser than an apartment, which to me is a red flag that was there before
Yep,
the Ammons were there, because you're not
yeah,
going to charge lesser rent on a place where you think you could get more,
right.
right? Because a lot of the ghost stories I've ever heard about places that have been haunted for a long time that nobody talks about until you move in, the rent always seems to be cheaper,
yep.
or the price of the home always
Yeah,
seems to be cheaper, right? That is a
yeah,
number one red flag that something's going
yeah,
on.
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
buy the
You ain't
boyfriend
kidding.
had that anything to I think it was before, way
Right.
before,
I think it was
uh
the house, ritualistic things. But you're right, Steve. If all the houses around you are like 300 grand and you're looking at this one and it's dropped to 120 grand, there's some questions that's
yeah,
got to be answered for
yeah.
that.
You need the
Absolutely.
the Carfax on him.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Steve, did this kind of pretty much seal your beliefs, or
I mean, look, it's one of those things where I have enough to be satisfied that there was something evil there, right? In all honesty, I don't need, that's one of those places I don't need the full story, because it's almost like I don't want to. It's what Wendell was talking about earlier with the gin, right? Like, look, that's just not something I want. I love going in, and like I said, I'd love to go to all kinds of places that are noted to be haunted, and whatnot. I would love to spend time in these places, right? I mean, Jeff, you and I grew up in what we would consider to be a haunted location, and so, but this is something that I have no intention, nor do I want to be a part of. Or, I mean, if I would have known the full story before, and you're like, hey, here's the keys. You got the place for, this long, that, like, dude, I'm good. I'm good.
yeah,
I even if you offer me tens of thousands, I'm good. Like, dude, I don't need nothing like that in my life at all. I don't need it. So I believe it.
So what's your thoughts on this one, Wendell?
Same thing. There's some things that are real, and it's better. How's it? It's better to stay anonymous sometimes. And I don't think this is something that you want to get on the radar with. And there is a difference between ghosts and demons. I think when you're talking about demons, you're talking about evil. And we throw that word out all the time, evil. But
Yeah.
if you really think about what evil is, there's nothing nice. I think that Nefarious show is the best example I think I ever saw, where that demon tortured that dude all the way through the movie,
Yeah.
basically, and didn't feed him, he didn't let him eat, didn't let him drink, and then he was going to get executed in the worst way. And even with all that, the one thing he wanted was a cheeseburger or a shake or something, or something
It was
simple.
a
Before
cheeseburger,
he
yeah.
died, it was a cheeseburger. And the demon, after he told the guard what he wanted, and the guard was walking away, the demon took over and said, no, never mind. I don't want anything. And it was just, it opened my eyes to the eternal evil. There's no mercy. There's never any let up. And I'm with Steve. That's something I don't want in my life. I don't want anywhere near it. And because there's no let up when you're talking about evil and demons. With ghosts, it's sightings, it's period, it's time, it's a period in time that goes away or comes back or whatever. The demon stuff, I don't think there's never any let up. There's no mercy to it. And, you hear all kind of people with alpha personalities act tough and everything, but then there's always a let up. Not with demons. There's not a let up. All they want is your misery. And so, yeah, I think it's a different animal. I think they definitely had something going on there. And hats off to the priest that took it on to try to combat it. But um, yeah, I'll let it
I
be.
got you. You know, I believed this story even before I started researching this. That the one thing I don't understand is why certain family or a certain person gets picked out of millions of people to be, harassed or possessed. That I never understood that. But like you said, hats off to the Father Maginot, who took it on. But the one thing I do suggest is that you don't mess with like the doors, because once it attaches to you, some of these things, they'll go with you and they'll attach to the next person and the next person. And
Do you think it
it'll
could
be
be as
years.
simple as the wrong place, wrong time? They just crossed the path?
Well, I don't know, because like I said, like Steve was saying, the rent's so low. I don't know who was in there before, or if anybody else, had any of these things happen to them. So I don't know. Just like the Amityville horror, they bought that house because somebody got murdered there, and things started happening. Probably sold pretty cheap after they left too. And I don't know if the next people got or any problems with it themselves. So I don't know. I just advise just stay away from 'em. Don't invite them. But a lot of the times we fall on deaf ears, people. So
I think
you
Amityville
know,
went for $8,000
golly, man.
to one of the owners.
Right.
Yeah,
I got
yeah,
you.
but that's what I mean. A location, it's a location, and I wonder if it is just the misfortune of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't think that lady in Gary was selected out of all the millions in the United States. I think location, proximity, maybe to evil.
Hmm.
Uh, who knows?
Yeah,
We'll have to
true.
we'll have to have a show about Amityville, because it's definitely it's got to be on the horizon, because believe it or not, there's a lot of people who've lived in that home who said it's the quietest home you've ever been in your entire life. Like, a
Right.
lot of people have
Right.
owned it. There's rules for owning it now. Like, there's rules. You can't have ghost hunters come in. You can't
Yeah.
have shows filmed there. You can't have. So I think that's worthy of a show, and I think we should maybe look in that future. But I would agree with you, Wendell. I can't understand why certain people are picked versus other people. I do think that there's something to it, but I also think that part of it may be some sort of intention. And may not be that you're evil or want something bad to happen. It could, who knows? It's one of those things we may never know until we cross over,
Yeah.
True
So,
that.
yeah.
Well,
Jeff,
good
that's a beautiful
discussion, guys.
That's a beautiful picture of our CEO behind you, man.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Welcome, the
really
big
like that.
CEO, the
There
big
you go.
fan.
There you go.
He's always watching us, always telling me, in my left ear here that be better. So
Yeah. Shut Wendell up. Move on.
Right.
Shut Wendell up.
All right, good show, guys, and thank you guys for watching Buried Stories. If you got a comment about this show, leave it in the comment section below. Hit that like button, subscribe, and if you got a story or if you've ever lived in a haunted house or know anybody that has, if you want to email us at buriedstories74@gmail.com, we'd appreciate it. And from Buried Stories, the family here, to you, thank you for watching, and good night.